congratulations. It's great that you've been able to take the appointment, and no doubt you're looking forward to the challenges that it does present for you.
Sure. Good morning, Shane, and good morning, listeners. Yeah, thanks very much for that. Very much looking forward to it. I've been Deputy Chair for 18 months or so, under a very successful previous chair in Michael Duffy, but looking forward to my turn at the helm.
All right, how do you find the Victorian industry at the moment? What do you think the strengths are and its weaknesses are?
I think we're very well placed. We've had a very successful last 4 or 5 years with the negotiation of the new licence with Tabcorp. We're now a 50-50 joint venture partner, which was a significant improvement on the previous licence arrangements. In addition to that, we've recently had the successful media rights aggregation agreement, which was a cooperative effort between New South Wales and Victoria, which leaves us very well placed in terms of the future of maximising revenues from both the media rights themselves and wagering opportunities that arise therefrom.
I'll come back and talk about the media position a little bit later, but I suppose one thing that's really come of this joint venture relationship with Tabcorp is that the administrating body, Racing Victoria, probably needs to now think like a wagering provider, not just an administration group of the industry. I suppose there has to have been a bit of a mind shift.
Oh, very much so, Shane. It's been a cultural shift, actually, that in the past we were a junior partner in the wagering business. Now we are very much in the wagering business ourselves, and we're looking at every opportunity to maximise that.
You've put forward 7 key areas which will be the initial focus for you as you chair the board forward. I want to go through some of these points because I think they're very significant. It also shows that that Racing Victoria is very much on the front foot and wanting to tackle a lot of these issues. We'll start with integrity. Why is integrity so important for you as the chairman?
Well, our role at Racing Victoria, Shane, is to grow the revenue pie. The supply comes in from our joint venture wagering business, and we have significant demands from industry participants. So we need to keep growing that pie to meet those demands. That growth can either come domestically or from international opportunities. To get domestic growth, you have to have strong integrity. In racing, we get over 90% of our revenue from wagering. We don't have the luxury of sports like AFL or NRL, where they get significant revenue from spectators and from media rights. Because most of our income comes from wagering, we have to have AAA plus rating integrity. The punters have to have confidence to bet.
Are you, I suppose, of the belief that racing probably doesn't get the credit it actually deserves for the integrity practices that it has put in place over the years?
Very much so. We spend over $15 million a year on integrity. Through the Racing Analytical Services Laboratory, we test more samples than any other laboratory in Australia. The few samples that we can't test we send to Hong Kong. We've also made some significant announcements on integrity over the last 3 or 4 months. So we feel that we've got very much a gold standard in integrity of all sports in Australia.
Are you concerned that there's a spectre of cheating attached to the sport?
Where there's money involved, you'll always get that sort of element. We've done everything we can to eliminate that. We've made some significant announcements recently in relation to jockey betting, increased penalties. We're about to make an announcement that as a condition of jockeys' licences, they'll have to make a declaration that they haven't engaged in wagering on racing. They can bet on other sports, of course. In terms of drug detection, as I say, our RASL laboratory leads the way. We've also had a surveillance unit over the last 12 months which has met with considerable success in detecting race day treatments. We've been the only state that's had that. New South Wales has just appointed one. We're about to appoint our 2nd surveillance unit.
What about areas of infrastructure? Because in many ways integrity and infrastructure will sit side by side.
Correct. To get domestic growth you have to have good integrity, as I say, AAA plus integrity, but you need great infrastructure. Punters won't bet unless the tracks are fair. We've spent over $60 million with the help of the government over the last 4 years on infrastructure projects, and there's a lot more happening over the next 3 or 4 years. Our objective is to have a major racing and training centre on every arterial road leading out of Melbourne in a circle around 100 kilometres from Melbourne, with a great racing surface and a great training centre.
So you're committed to making sure that the tracks that are currently in place will still have a future, those clubs will still exist?
Yes, there's no intention to close race clubs. In fact, some of our most successful country meetings are from clubs that only hold 1 race meeting a year. But I think we need to focus our energies on a ring of major racing and training centres excuse me, around Australia, around Victoria on those major arterial roads.
Are you a supporter of synthetic track racing?
Very much so. Synthetic track racing is important because with our climate in Victoria, we are at risk of losing a lot of meetings unless we have an alternative. we have a fairly wet and cold winter here. Geelong has worked fantastically well for us. There are some issues with Geelong in that it doesn't have starts between 1,300 metres and 1,900 metres. So when we transfer meetings there, we do get some scratchings. For that reason, we think we need a second synthetic track. We're looking at that at the moment, and possibly one that will have starts at every distance.
So is this a slight policy shift compared to when Michael Duffy and Rob Hines were running the show? Because I know that there was a lot of talk about synthetic track racing there for a while, but it seemed to get off the agenda towards the end of that tenure.
Well, I think under Michael and Rob, they were far-sighted enough to give us our first synthetic track. I think there were some problems with that track early on, which were mainly due to its construction. It had to be redone. They've been fixed, and all the veterinary evidence we've had over the last year or two, or last 3 or 4 years now, have indicated that the injury rate and the accident rate is no worse on synthetic tracks than grass tracks. That's prompted us to now look at a second synthetic track, again because the revenue opportunities from not losing meetings are fairly substantial.
Are you looking at clubs wanting to come and perhaps tender for the right to have a synthetic track? How will this work moving forward?
No, we're fairly well advanced on that process, so we're not looking for particular tenders. We would be hoping to make an announcement over the next couple of months.
International